everyone. A few of you have contacted me via email asking me to put together a short video showing you how the interaction between a trackMatte and the footage, or a mask and its footage, is for the assignment that I gave you guys last Tuesday. So I'm gonna show you a short clip of how that was achieved and hope that this will actually give you a guide on what steps to follow to make it happen. So what we did in class, basically, let me go ahead and drop in a piece of footage into the timeline. I'm going to reduce this to the size of the window so that I can work with it. And similar footage to the one I gave you in class. What I want to do now is I want to create a trackMatte that allows me to show the footage on top of it. So two options we have right now. The first option could be we create a trackMatte, and by doing, we would do that since I asked you not to create any new footage. What I've asked you to do is to possibly use a shape layer to act as a trackMatte. So if we deselect everything by clicking on the gray area and then choosing the rectangle tool, you can go ahead and draw a trackMatte, and then you would go ahead and apply a trackMatte to the sprint, to, in this case, the bottom layer, the one below it, to use the alpha information to the one above it. So now they remain separate. So if I were to choose the trackMatte and I would change its position, the trackMatte would travel separate from the background. Same thing with the fill. If I change the position of the fill, it would remain separate from the trackMatte. So I have the ability to do either one of the two to create the animation effects. Now, as you've noticed, this shape layer is a rectangle. Let me delete that shape layer really quick and actually double click on the rectangle tool with everything deselected. Let me click on the gray area to deselect everything. Now let me choose the rectangle tool, double click to create a shape that is the shape of the whole composition. This way I can go ahead and scale down and maintain the dimensions of the shape. But most importantly, I will start with an anchor point that is smack in the center of the shape layer. Now, if you uncollapse the shape layer to reveal all of its content, let's close transformations for just a second. Let's take a look at the contents and the rectangle information. If we look in detail into this area, we can see that there's options to change stroke. There's options to change the path. We could actually affect the roundness of the corners if we want to. And we have the option to change not only the path, but also the fill color if we want to. Now, the fill in our case is not going to make any difference because the fill is just a color for us to see the actual shape. What we're interested on is the alpha information. And by definition, as we explained in class, alpha is what allows you to see. So if we have an object that has transparency areas in it, the alpha channel will allow you, the mask will allow you to see what you have, what that layer contains, and the transparency would be defined by the empty areas. In this case, our alpha channel are the edges of that rectangle. Everything that's inside it is visible, that's the red area, and that would be the alpha information that we would be using. Everything else outside it would be the transparency. Now, the rectangles that I showed you in class are not like this one. They are not evenly laid out. So what I showed you in class was more like a trapezoid shape. So how would you go about doing something like that? But let me go ahead and remove the shape layer again. I'll select it and delete it. And this time, before I start, I am going to turn on my grid. And with the grid visible, I can go ahead and use the same options as we do in Photoshop or Illustrator, such as snap to grid, show grid. All of these different things that we have in Photoshop or Illustrator become available to us in After Effects. So I can go ahead and use the snap to grid, and then with that snap to grid option selected, I'll go ahead and use the pen tool. Now make sure that everything is deselected so that I actually create a new shape, and then I'll go ahead and click to create the shape that I want. As you can see, I can go ahead and use these as guides. Let me deselect that and let me go back and turn off the visibility of that layer, make sure that my track matte on the one below is alpha matte, turn off the visibility of the layer that I just created, and let me turn off the grid. And as you can see, now I have the shape that I have in the file that I gave you guys. Let me change the background to white so you guys can see that everything else outside remains transparent. And like I said at the beginning, the shape layer maintains its own motion, position abilities, and so does the content. Okay. Now, option number 2 for this, to create this, the effect that we did in class, is by creating a mask in the layer itself. And to do that, what I did was I could select the layer this time that I have active, double click on the rectangle tool, and you'll notice that this time it creates a mask. Then I'll double click the mask to select it all, and then I'll shrink it to fit the area that I need. Then I can go ahead and do the same thing that we did in class, the trick that we did to select only one corner or to select one edge. And while clicking on that, let me go ahead and double click and click on it. Now it's one edge, but that also means the edges are available to me, not just one point, not just the anchor point, but just anything. As long as I don't see this white outline with the handles in the middle, that evenly sizes the mask to retain the rectangular shape or whatever original shape I gave it. To get out of that mode, you simply click on double click again on the mask inside the mask, and then click off, and you'll notice that it becomes available to you. The points become available to you. That done, I'll go ahead and move the bottom edge, top edge, and there you have it. Now, the issue here is that that mask will move with the layer because they all belong to one single file. So if I click on its position, the mask will move with it. In some of the videos that I gave you, some of the masks were done this way, some others were trackmatted. Those were the trackmatte moves independent from the footage, and you'll notice that by looking at the footage, by studying the footage, you'll see which ones in which the trackmatte is moving and in which the trackmatte or mask is static with the footage. So you'll just figure out that by looking at the actual footage and seeing all this footage is moving behind the mask. That must be a trackmatte. If the footage is moving along with the mask, then it's a mask. But you could also move this mask if you wanted to. Remember, the masks, select the layer to call the mask and press the M key, M as in Maria. You open it up and you'll see that the mask has the mask path shape on it. You can go ahead and click the stopwatch for that particular property, the mask path, and you can actually independently move that through time. So let me move down to 2 seconds, double click the mask, and it allows me to move it independent from the footage. So I can create motion with that mask as well. It just takes a little bit longer to do than doing it with a trackmatte because you have to retain 2 pieces of information within one single layer that might not work in tandem. So if they're not working at the same time, if they're not coordinated, you need to work out the keyframes to offset one another so that it looks like the mask is static while it actually is moving, or vice versa. I hope this little video helps you and guides you on how to go ahead and put together the different pieces of footage that we had created for that bumper. And what I need from you guys on Tuesday is the AAP version of this. I don't need the whole footage. I have the footage from what I gave you in class. I just need you to provide me with the AAP file. Hope this helps.